So, welcome everyone to Carving a New Path. My name is Andrea Hylen. I'm the host of this show. And before I introduce my guest, Sofia Wren, I want to just say that this podcast began in 2020 in response to all the change that people were experiencing. And so the conversations and guests on this podcast have already listened to their inner voice and birthed new ways of being in the world. And I felt like these conversations could be helpful to all of us who are continuing to evolve in our lives. Well, last week, Sofia Wren and I talked about her journey as a writer and a teacher, and that's episode 24. So if you want a little more background on her, you can go listen to that. But today, for episode 25, we're going to talk about cultivating a writing practice, as well as some other things that tie in with that. And before we begin our conversation, I just want to share a few things about Sofia. She helps sensitive people write for a book or business so that they can serve a wider audience. Sofia has pursued a passion for publishing online and in books for over 20 years. And for 10 years, she's run her own business, learning how to sell and connect with writing. She now focuses on entrepreneurs and writers ready to hone their writing, reach the people they are here to serve, and feel the love. And she's also the creator of the 21-day Heartfelt Writing Challenge, which begins in a few days on December 18th. So if you missed that and you listen to this recording later, just know that she does this once, twice, three times a year, I guess, depending on what the year is. And so that you can check out her website that's in the show description. Sorry, lost for words there for a moment, show description. And I will just move into how today we're going to talk about cultivating a writing practice. So welcome, Sofia.
Hey, thank you for the wonderful introduction. Appreciate it. It was great to chat.
Yeah, I love having conversations with you. First of all, I just want to say to anyone who sees this on YouTube and sees what we each look like and all, that yes, I did say 20 years as a writer because you began
Mm-hmm.
writing as a child. And I know we went into that last week, so I'm not sure if there's anything that you want to say about
Yeah.
that, but feel free to bring that into the conversation. Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
just
I'm so
play it.
lucky that I started very early. It was more sporadic, probably for the first, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. I say I've been writing for 20 years. It's probably been closer to 25 or whatever, but I just for ease of not having to count it all out. I'm
Sure.
36 now. So yeah, it was around middle school that I started my first blog, and that I didn't know that that would be a life-changing experience. It wasn't something I really put a lot of time into at the time, but in my 20s, that's when I really started to recognize that writing is an amazing tool and I should do more of it and I should do it every day. And here we are. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know today that we'll kind of go back and forth talking about cultivating a writing practice because it has been something that's been really valuable for both of us that we've each had a writing practice and what that is. And so I'm really anticipating that we'll kind of share some of those examples back and forth, and also that we've seen it with our clients, like
Mhm.
what it is to cultivate a writing practice. So I'm going to just kind of bounce it into your, pass the walking stick, as they say, to you to start this conversation off about anything that comes up for you about cultivating a writing
Yeah.
practice.
So what immediately popped into my head was this one woman that I was hired to help write. Um, she wanted to write. She came to me because I was helping people to write and edit books and all these other things. But she basically had a book inside of her that hadn't gotten out, and she even had a book deal. But it was so many years before. Um, it'd been about 6 years since she talked to that publisher, and it had just been weighing in the back of her mind for these years that she hadn't written the book yet. And she hadn't had time because she had 2 kids, she was a professor, and how on earth she was going to write the book, she never could figure out. So she hired me to get some help with that. And right away, I had her set up what I call a writing tracker. I think it's a really, really great tool if you want to start any habit, but a writing practice, it's really great. Especially if you struggle, if you've got a lot of things going on, it's really helpful. So it was basically just like an Excel sheet, and we just tracked the days and did she write or did she not write, and just more information about what was going on. And so then we would check in on the phone, I don't know, about every 2 weeks, every month, something like that for I think we had 3 sessions. So in the beginning, it was like she would come and she would be like, yeah, I didn't get any writing done. But we would dig into it and we would see, well, how are you feeling about that? Because so many people have this feeling when they don't write, when they don't meet their goal about, I want to write, it's a bad feeling. And then now when you go to think about writing, now you have a bad feeling attached to it. And you might think that that's like, it's like, if you do something bad in your life and you feel guilt, it can kind of help you recognize, I did something that's not the best and I'm going to try to do better. But this isn't really the same thing, because it becomes a burden, it becomes a weight that actually keeps you from having any positive association with writing and just beating yourself up. And so we kind of dug into all of these contributing factors that led to that beat up feeling in the past, and even kind of doing some healing work on an old academic advisor that was really sexist and things like that. Those things can get into your head when you start to try to write and you start going through this process. There's so many things that come up to be healed sometimes, and it's for that very reason alone, I think it's worth trying to do, just to try to get that stuff out of you. But anyway, so over time, we kind of were talking about like, okay, what was your goal? Okay, that didn't happen. How can we tweak it? If it's not going to happen every day, if it's not going to happen during your office hours, if it's not going to happen that time you blocked it off in your calendar, where else could we put it? Where else could we put it? And by the end session, she came up with this brilliant idea that, hey, I'm teaching a class next semester. I decided we're going to teach the book. And so every week I'm going to have to, first I'm going to have to make the outline for the class. And then every week I'm going to have to create the teaching materials. And I'm basically going to create the same content that I'm going to have for the book. And that's how she did it. And she was complete. She created her own little system to do it. So I just thought that was such an amazing situation, and it just spoke to how all of us are different. All of us have got our little quirks in our life and stuff like that. So I think the key is really to release yourself from guilt and shame about not writing, because it's really not helpful. And then 2, just try to like observe non-judgmentally at what's going on, what is working or not working, and just take it bit by bit. If you just say, tomorrow I'm going to wake up early and do this, and that doesn't happen, ask yourself why, or what could have worked better. And then just keep doing that. And then if you just keep doing that over and over again, eventually you're going to figure something out for yourself, and just give yourself a little patience. So yeah, that's
I love that. That's so inspiring. And there's I want to share a little bit about how I started writing like on a regular basis. And before I do that, I want to shine a light on how you were just talking about. She created the course, and out of the course, the book came.
yeah.
And something that I've noticed working with clients and with myself is that, this idea of don't let anyone see the material before you put something out, when in actuality, many books have been written from blogs that people have done
Yeah.
by pulling those blog posts. And it would say, well, why would someone buy your book if they've already been reading your blog? Well, it's because your blog is in piecemeal pieces, and if there's the value in the information, they're going to buy the book where it's all put together, and that you can edit those pieces. You can add things to them, and it doesn't have to be in the order that you put the blogs in, even. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that but something else I just want to bring into the conversation. I was thinking about how, like, I was a journal writer for a long time, and I would say at different parts of my life, there were times where I thought I wanted to write a book, didn't really know what I would write the book on, and that it would come up every once in a while. Someone would say, "Oh, you've been traveling with your kids, homeschooling. Why don't you write a book about that? Like how you come up with the trips and what you do on the trips and help people plan." And so there was a certain point. Actually, I remember it was in 2004. I decided that I was going to, and I was homeschooling my kids, working part-time jobs, renovating a house with my husband, very busy life. And that I decided that every Friday morning I was going to go to a bagel shop for an hour and just start working on the book. And I feel like one of the misconceptions, people think, oh, I've set aside the time. Now it's all just going to come together. No, I would sit there and eat my bagel and drink my coffee, and I would just dream about what would I write? And maybe I'd jot down a few notes, but it wasn't really coming together as far as what I wanted. And then life took a huge plot twist turn. My husband was diagnosed with cancer. He had almost a year-long journey of cancer treatments. He died. I then had his business to deconstruct. It
Mm-hmm.
was like a 5-year period there where I still was a journal writer, but I didn't have time to think about doing anything other than, oh, and actually I did start blogging. It's
Mm-hmm.
so funny. I'm thinking, oh, nothing else happened. No, actually, I did end up mentoring a group of women to write stories for a Conscious Choices book. I mean,
Right.
there were things that were happening. So, but
Yes.
it
Yeah.
wasn't like time for my book to
Yeah.
come.
Right.
It was another book, and other things were building. But then I moved from Maryland to California, and there was a point where my daughter and I sublet an apartment, and I, for the first time, really had this like window where every morning I had a routine. I got up, I wrote in a journal, I did Tai Chi. It was like 5 minutes of this, 5 minutes of that, 5 minutes of meditating. And then I walked to a coffee shop and I would sit there and write. And
Mm-hmm.
for 3 hours, I would give myself every morning time in the coffee shop to write. And the thing that like cultivating a writing practice, what started to happen, because I didn't know what I was going to write about,
Mm-hmm.
but what started to happen by that commitment to a time and a place on a consistent basis, and I think it would have worked if I said Sunday mornings, or like, or Tuesday evenings, or something, but just carving out that time, that it's like, this is my time to write. What started to happen was on that 10-minute walk to the coffee shop, I would start to have ideas about what I was going to write, even to the point where I'd pull out my phone to make a voice memo so that I made sure that when I arrived, that's what I was going to write about. And I ended up in 2 months writing 70 articles on grief transformation. That
Wow.
then became a blog talk radio show that I did a few months later, 44 days of blog talk radio on grief transformation. I started posting the recordings and then attracted 27 guests who talked about grief and talked about ways they'd navigated it. And
Mm-hmm.
then out of that, I got the idea for Heal My Voice, and to have develop a 9-month program to work with women on writing stories about trauma, loss, grief, reclaim the power, and step into greater leadership. So, like, that's part of my story about what cultivating that practice. And it doesn't mean that that those 3 hours, like I would always sit down and know what to write. Sometimes it was just like, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm, you know,
An open.
right. I am open. I'm an open vessel. So yeah. So just the power of that and
Yeah.
what gets activated in our brains. So
And I think it's good too to be like, you know, people can be in different places. So there's no like advice for the one right way to do stuff, to do
right.
right, do any of this. And I feel like almost like these projects that we want to work on, it's so common that one of the reasons why I say I help people to write for their book or their business, and even maybe just even a personal story, is because a lot of times people will come saying, I want to write this. And as we work together, it transforms into some other thing. And that's so common
Yeah.
because that's just sort of what happens a lot of times. There's a lot of different ways to share, and we're also complex and have so many different things we could write about that even can be a place people can get stuck in. Like, what am I going to do? I kind of see it as, or they're clinging really hard to, but I said I was going to write this book and get it done this year. And that was my goal for the year. And so I have to write about this, but I can't write about this. Help me
Mhm.
write about this. But my heart actually wants to write about this other thing now. But I'm going to force myself to do the other one,
Right.
it, and so, I think having a certain amount, it's kind of a balance, and you have to discern what is right for you. If you really are procrastinating something your heart is saying is for right now, go for it. Try to put yourself down and sit and write about it. Okay. But maybe there's another project calling to you and it's time to be open and flexible and let your heart go, because I kind of see all these books and projects as like little balls, like little circles that are floating and dancing around in the air. And sometimes they're so close you can just reach up and touch it and grab it. And sometimes they kind of float away for a while. And you're like, come back. But it's just it's just what it is, like that's kind of what I was hearing when you were saying you had to take kind of 5 years to process all of the things that were the domino effect of your husband getting cancer. The book was like right there, you could almost taste it, but then it kind of floated away for a while.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and it's whatever is gonna come will come. And I think when you sort of sit down and see your writing practice as almost like a spiritual practice, that it kind of engenders more trust that this isn't just your little thought babies. Like, you are part of a greater creative world, a greater creative process. And to some degree, you need to surrender. It's not all in your control. And if the book wants to come out now, amazing. Some people have a totally different philosophy. I know Stephen King is like, inspiration doesn't wait for you. I'm going to write 8 hours a day. Hey, that works for him. Cool. But some
Mhm.
people are more like, this is a magical process and it wants to come to me right now. It doesn't want to come to me right now. I've done everything I can to do to try, but maybe it's not the moment. And I'm going to go see what it is the moment for and do some other thing. Cause you were like, oh, I love how your thought was like, I didn't do anything. And you're like, wait. No, I did a lot of things. Because our brains always do that. I always hear that from people like, yeah, no, I didn't do any writing. I didn't really. And I'm like, what else did you do? Like, oh yeah, I ran a marathon and I broke my leg and I've been going on these medical appointments. I'm like, okay, then you've been doing some things.
Mhm.
Let's just acknowledge a lot of things were happening. It just wasn't that specific thing you really were attached to. And that's where we have to kind of meet life where it
Yes,
wants to take us.
it is. And I have never written a book about homeschooling and the innovative way that I did it and community building and all that, but I've used those skills that I learned from doing that
Mm,
to do other things. And really, there was a book that was birthed in that 5 years that
mm,
wasn't the original idea. It was actually Karen Porter standing up in an evolutionary women retreat and saying, I think we should all write a book. And I got like a zing in my body of like, oh, I want to be a part of that project, while I'm also handling details after my husband has died, that were still going on for years. And that book actually became a foundational piece for Heal My Voice that I had no idea that I would hold space for women writing stories, like where does that come from? And that to me is the power of cultivating a writing practice, is that there's something about the inquiry and the creating some kind of space for it, whether it's I'm going to start every day with writing for 5 minutes. I'm going to end every day with writing for 5 minutes. Something that just gives it value, makes it important, a priority in some ways. Like it's just such an important part. Like to me, and it may not be writing for someone, it may be art of some kind. It may be playing the guitar and just seeing what music comes out as you every day make some commitment to hold that guitar in your arms. Um, yeah, I feel like it's it should be in the survival part of the hierarchy of needs. It's like
Mhm.
food, water, sleep, creativity, because
Mhm.
it brings out something in us.
It really does, and it's if you're trying to write, um, when we have that real specific attachment that causes us to beat up on ourselves, I think we're forgetting that the real commitment is to yourself.
Yeah.
Like you're deciding like, hey, I matter and my thoughts and my feelings matter, and that's why I'm putting pen to paper, because I want to honor that
Mhm.
in this process and see what comes out. And that's going to be, and it could be really cool because I'm really cool.
Mhm.
And if you're coming at it from that place of like, I'm investing in myself, then, and you remember, oh, hey, that's why I'm doing this. So beating myself up, wow, that is completely not in line with my real goal, to know why you're really, really doing this. And there's so many studies that have been done on writing and how it's really beneficial for your mental health and healing trauma and so many great things. And I think that's why me and you are like, we're so about writing and we share about writing and want to get everyone writing. But at the same time, we can be like, but if you don't write and you just dance,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
leaving.
right. Right, exactly. Just do
Yeah.
something that sparks that creativity inside of you because it is about you. And it can
Yeah.
be so easy to get caught up in what other people need or what we think we need to be doing for other
Yeah.
people. I just want to kind of turn the attention to the 21-day Heartfelt Writing Challenge that begins on December 18th, because it's something that you've done a number of times. And I'd love to have you talk about the challenge and also to continue this idea of cultivating a writing practice I feel like let's turn some attention to that for a minute. Like what
Sure.
work
Yeah,
do you
I
have
love the
around that?
challenge. I'm so glad that um it's happening, that we're doing one next week. And if people are hearing this way later, uh one, it goes for 21 days and you can always hop in after it starts. And two, I'm going to be doing it again. I do it multiple times a year. Um, and it's just a way to get people together, to get people excited about writing. And we have these prompts that we collectively do every day for 21 days. And it's just a way to kind of spark inspiration and spark some self-reflection and connecting to your heart. Um, to again be investing in that very important you person that doesn't always get focus with all of the distractions that you have. So that is the kind of writing that will really bring you closer to yourself and closer to what is really next for you when you're operating from that connection to yourself. So I really love it. I think it's a great way for me. I mean, I love it for myself because it's, even though I write regularly, it's just nice to have a community. It's also really nice to have these prompts that always feel really positive and take my mind to a positive place whenever I do them. So it's nice to have that. I've found that my creativity has opened in unexpected ways. Last time I started making music again, which I hadn't in a while, and that was really nice. So it can take you unexpected places, but really can spark inspiration for any project that you're working on. Um, and anybody who signs up also gets my tracker that I talked about, helping people to use writing trackers to build a daily habit. I actually have all kinds of versions of different trackers. So you can try it yourself, and there's training, there's video and PDF about how to use the tracker. So that's all free. And yeah, it's just kind of like a little party. And this time around, I'm getting that the vibe is reinvention, not like that everything we have is bad and we should throw it all away and start over, but just like when snow dusts things in winter and everything looks a little different, even though it's basically the same. There's something about when you have this fresh new energy come in, you can kind of reinvent um a space, and that's what I'm getting for this time around. Just kind of clearing out maybe something we don't need, but also focusing our energy on what is really gonna flip things around to a positive place. And I have no idea what is in store for myself, because the thing about the creative process is you never know what's going to happen until you're looking back, and then you think, oh, of course.
Mhm.
But it's all kind of a mystery. So it's yeah, I think of it as almost like, it's right now, it's also December, so a lot of people are giving gifts, but there's so many things you can't buy at the store. You can't buy peace at the store, or clarity on your life purpose, or what am I going to do about this problem? You can't always buy those things at the store, but you can give it to yourself a lot of times when you write. So it's like having 21 little presents for yourself.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, the present today. And it's something that you have a secret Facebook group, and people can also, you're still sending it out by email also.
Yeah, I distribute it different ways depending, so people can kind of choose if they want to. They can join the Facebook group where we're going to have things shared there. If they want to, they can get my email announcements. That's where I tell everybody what's generally going on. And then you can also select to get the prompts every day by email, if that's the way you want to get it. Don't have to. And then also I'm going to share on Threads and
Hmm.
possibly LinkedIn. So it always depends like on what my mood is. But
Yeah,
I try to make it so there's lots of different ways you can get the prompts.
I love that. Um, I wanted to also give us space a little bit here as we're kind of getting toward the end of our conversation, but to talk about deletion, deleting
Yeah.
things. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden I was like, no, I don't want to delete what I write. That's so funny because when we talked about it earlier, I was like, yeah, deletion. Right now I'm like going, no, I'm wanting to hold on to things. So yeah, talk to us about deletion.
Yeah, yeah, that's really been bubbling in me lately, this idea of deletion, because if you're writing, you're going to have a lot of words eventually. You're going to have a lot of things. And even when we're just thinking about kind of going forward in our lives, we kind of I have this image in my life of like we're supposed to be climbing these mountains, and if you're always trying to go up, you're always trying to build things up. So if you were to like turn around and go down, it's almost like if people were watching the movie of your life, they would be like, no, no, wrong way. Don't, no, no, down is up is down. What are you doing? You've got it all mixed up. So it's like we don't want to go back. We don't want to, if we're trying to add words, we don't want to delete words. But sometimes it's okay. Sometimes there's something really beautiful about the clean slate, or just having a little space to focus on the things that are like your favorites. And the cool thing about words is that we can put it into an archive, which we might talk about in a future episode.
Yeah,
You can
definitely.
stick it in another document and go put that in a folder and just kind of keep it, but not look at it. You know, there's something really freeing. And I think I was part of, it's so present for me too, because since I was growing up in this era of blogs, that it was always kind of, I was always aware of like this digital reality of you can put something out there and then you can like make it private, or you can remove it and delete it and take it away. And sometimes even when we're using these different new ways to publish things, they disappear. So like you were putting your words on a website. I do like to keep a copy of all my words for that reason, just for myself, because sometimes those websites disappear. But it can be so horrifying, like, oh my God, like all my stuff is there. But it's also kind of an opportunity, because it's like, okay, clear slate. We're gonna refocus on things, because I think that as a writer, what I've learned is it's the distillation and the simplification that is really where like the genius is seen by others.
Mm-hmm.
When you're able to crystallize like a concept that you've been writing about for 2 years into a podcast or a sentence, it's so satisfying. And so sometimes you have to go through this process of like a million different paths to just pick one, or just to distill it down. And when you have space, when you can delete all that, detach, and just go forward in a new way, it's a lot easier just to get to the point. I don't know. It's magic. So
Yeah. No, I
keep
love
constantly.
all of your different yeah, I'm actually feeling like maybe in a future um podcast we'll even talk even more about this,
Sure.
and to talk about the digital process of archiving and being able to access writing. Because one of the things that comes up for me is that time when I wrote 70 articles in 2 months on grief transformation, I have rewritten those articles a number of times. And so part of the deletion is actually not holding on to what the original one is. I rewrote them because I'm a better writer now than I
Mm-hmm.
am or than I was then. And there are times where I've just needed to put something out there. And then when I go back, it's like, 5 years later, I'm like, okay, that was really good to say that out loud. And I don't need to just, like you talked about the distillation process. It's like, it's no longer necessary to go into some of those details. It's not about thinking I needed to hide them. It's just that it's just not part of the story, that I can actually tell it in 5 sentences instead of 50 sentences. And so, yeah, that whole process of what is deletion. And, sometimes something happens in the computer world where things do get lost and deleted,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, light a candle, spend some time
Oh,
grieving, you know,
yeah.
the words are still inside of you, the experience is still inside of you, and what is important to express into the world will come back in whatever form is meant to.
Right. Right. And I got the image when you were talking about that, about of like watered down Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we look back at the things we've written and we're like, okay, I can see it's a little pink, there's a little bit of
Uh-huh.
the color of what I'm going for in there, but it's real, it could be more concentrated.
Yeah.
And so it's not until, you got to cut the water to
Mhm.
get it to be like a real strong red Kool-Aid, or
Mhm.
just fruit
Mhm.
juice. Let's just move out of Kool-Aid world. Yeah, like
Uh-huh.
the
Right.
concentrated, not trying to make real concentrated fruit juice.
Mhm.
Um, and you just want a few little drops, can be very tasty compared to a whole glass of watered down Kool-Aid. So
Yeah.
it's not all more is more. And yeah, sometimes you just ditch the old and just start fresh, start new, and just rewrite it. And it can come out like in 2 paragraphs and be very satisfying. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah. But I also totally get like wanting to keep a copy of it. And I'm totally for that. We can all
Mhm.
do that. The cool thing about text files is that they are so small
Mhm.
that you keep a little copy for yourself for the rest of your life and it could probably fit on any computer. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll talk more about that in the new year about the archiving and yeah, that really has come up for me lately because of the writing in the incubator. And I'm like, oh, I wrote about this. It would be really good to pull that information and then to get to it quickly instead of 2 hours of trying to find it and what file and when did I write that and where was it and what blog was it on or where da 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 da, you know. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm
Hmm.
very much looking forward to that. Anything else that
Cool.
you want to say about cultivating a writing process or deletion
Mm.
as we kind of wrap up?
Yeah, it all comes back down to awareness and just being aware of what's going on and not judging it too much, and
Mhm.
just and writing itself is such a great way to become aware.
Yeah, it
So if you're
is.
ever wondering what's going on, just try writing about it.
Yeah. Yep. Your voice matters, and you deserve to have the time and attention to hear your own voice and also to share what you feel you want to.
Absolutely. Take up some space.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Sophia. I'm enjoying our writing conversations on the podcast, and I know there will be more to come in
Yeah,
2024. And so, thanks, and thanks everyone for listening. And that's it. That's a wrap for this season of talking about writing. So thanks. Okay. Bye now. Oops.